Welcome to the Recruitment Coverage Show. I'm your host, Ketan Gajjar. This podcast has been created to cut through the noise around outsourcing and business process management. Every conversation in here is grounded in real experience. What scales, what breaks, and what most people won't tell you. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Stephen Brown, Director at Estate Agents Learning. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Ketan. How are you?
Very good. Thank you, Stephen. Stephen, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and your journey in the estate agency sector?
Okay, so I left school many years ago when I was 18 and I went into property, mainly because my grades at A levels were not what I wanted. So instead of going to university, I ended up working in property. I started as an office junior. I made the worst cup of tea ever. My photocopying skills were shocking. And I was working for an investment agent in property. And then I started selling some properties. And in fact, I started selling more properties than the investment agent themselves. And I wasn't getting anywhere because I was just regarded as a junior. And I saw an advert in the Estates Gazette for another investment agent, and they were offering £50,000. And bearing in mind, I think I was only on £4,000 at the time.
Wow.
I went and applied for this job. I didn't get that job, but the person interviewing me liked the fact that I had gone along and tried for 50,000. So I started there. I was there for a couple of years. Sadly, I got made redundant. Then I did some work with my dad, and unfortunately, my dad passed away. And it was a challenging time with the property market. And I was also studying to become a chartered surveyor, and I got introduced to an estate agency, Green and Co. in Northwest London. And at the time I had an interview, I was about 6 months away from being qualified. The MD said to me at the time, you know what? I think you'll leave me in 6 months. Thank you, but no thank you. 3 weeks later, I hadn't found a job. He hadn't found anyone. So I ended up starting there. I didn't sell a property for the first 9 months because the market was incredibly challenging in London at the time. After it then clicked, 14 months later, I made branch manager. A couple of years later, I was made one of the directors. And then I ended up looking after the systems, processes and training of 100 colleagues. 13 and a half years ago, I left, set up my own estate agency consultancy. And I work up and down the country working with estate agents and letting agents. I got 3 simple aims, whoever I work with, to generate more revenue for their agency, for them to be more profitable and for them to be better than they were before they met me. I've also traveled to Australia and America to see how they both to do it as well. So for me, every day is a learning day. I'm always looking to improve. I'm always looking to get better. I get to see the good, the bad, and the incredibly ugly side of the estate agency. And in my humble opinion, 95% of estate agents are useless.
You've been there, done that, and you understand from your experiences that you help estate agents turn data into gold.
Very much so. So a lot of, in estate agency, relationships here, people buy a property, and most estate agents see it as a transaction, and that's it. For me, it's all about building a relationship, getting clients for life. So, if you sell a property, and I think the average UK fee is about £3,000, actually, if you give them a fantastic customer experience, they're going to recommend you to friends, family, colleagues and neighbours. That £3,000 with us as a lifetime value of 30, 40, 50,000, depending where you are in the UK. So, there's loads of estate agents that are always chasing, and this works mainly for estate agents that have been established, but they've got a massive customer base there. And there's gold sitting in there. And if agents, and most probably any business out there, you're in recruitment. So, and people always say, I need new business. I need new sellers, new buyers, whatever. Well, actually, you've got them all sitting there. So if I go back to my Green and Co days, we've been established 30 years. So there's 30 years of data there. So for me, one non-negotiable for any business is business generation. It's creating opportunities. It's making those calls. So for me, what works best for the better agents that are doing this is to schedule 1 hour of creating relationships in your diary every day. And the aim is to get one extra market appraisal. And if you can get one extra market appraisal a day, that's 250 a year. And if you convert one in two, that's 125 instructions. And if you sell 70 of those and the average UK fee is £3,000, that's an extra £210,000 worth of revenue a year. Why wouldn't you spend 1 hour every day picking up the phone, making the calls, building those relationships? Because there's, as you said at the start, there is gold in that customer base. And what I would say to people, because, let me ask you a question, Katan, if that's
Yeah.
okay with
Yeah,
you.
sure.
Um, do you like prospecting? Do you like picking up the phone?
Absolutely.
Good. Well, you're a one-off. Okay. So most times, and I do a lot of training events, and I would say, right, who likes to prospect, pick up the phones? And the majority will say no. And then I would ask them, so who likes to create relationships? And everyone puts their hand up.
Yeah.
And that's what prospecting is. It's all about creating relationships, for people to understand that. And if people listening or watching this, if they can change their mindset to understand that actually they're creating relationships, and that's going to help them grow for the business in the long term, it's going to make a massive, massive difference.
A lot of this is down to the structure, and this is one thing we want to talk about today. Is there's a lot of agency owners who say that the market is tough right now. In many cases that's not the only problem. It's also the numbers and the systems problem. That's something we want to cover, Stephen. When an estate agent says that the market is tough, what's the first thing that you instinctively actually look at in their business?
Look, you make your own market. So, obviously with what's going on with Iran at the moment and what's going on in the Middle East, we're looking at mortgage rates are starting to go up. The price of petrol's gone up. Energy prices have gone up. You can't control any of those things, but can you control picking up the phone and having those conversations? Of course you can. There are 11 reasons why people move. It's understanding, people are still sadly, they're going to pass away. People are going to get divorced. People are going to have to go into nursing homes. There's still investors out there. There's still developers out there. There's people out there that always need to sell. So there's always opportunities. So it's understanding that. So if I was an agent, I would find two things: who your motivated buyers are, so who needs to buy, and who your motivated sellers are. And then our job as an estate agent is to be a matchmaker, a deal maker. So whatever the market is, you can control your own market and you can control your own destiny. You have to be proactive rather than reactive, because if you're going to be reactive, then you're going to have a long.
You have to, you nailed it there, that, you look at things which, so when they usually say that the market is tough, what do you think, is really hiding behind that statement?
People like to make excuses. Okay. So again, they're being very, very reactive. You've got to go out there. You've got to put yourself out there. You need to be, so, it's great that you're doing this podcast. For me, I want to be the Google of the local area. So there's people that are curious to know what's going on in this market now. So I'd be doing market wraps. So where are you based? Where do you live?
I'm based in India.
India. Okay.
Yeah.
So which part of India?
So I'm based in a city named Ahmedabad, which is on the western part of India, about an hour on the flight from Mumbai. So Mumbai is south of, where I am.
Okay. So what I would do if you're watching this in India, okay, and you're an estate agent, go to your area, and I'm sure there's, in here we've got Rightmove and Zoopla, and you can get all the facts on that area. You want to be the local authority in your area, and you want to tell people what's going on, because there's a lot of people curious to know what's happening in the market with what's going on. And I'll be educating people what's going on. I think it's very, very important, education. And in the UK, there's a Facebook group. I think it's called the UK Community Facebook Group. And there's about 34,000 people on there. And they're always asking questions about estate agency and accepting offers and moving and stuff like that. So it's really important to educate people, and then you're seen as the authority for your area.
So let's talk about the operational side of estate agency. You covered a bit earlier with the stats, because this is where a lot of revenue quietly sits and leaks as well without owners even realizing it. So in your experience, where do you see the most estate agents, actually unknowingly lose this revenue?
I think it starts with actually knowing your numbers. So what are the key numbers in your business, and what are those numbers that can be improved? So for me, if I'm looking at any business, I want them to think about five things. So I want them to think, what can they do to add value to that seller, landlord, buyer, tenant's journey. It's very competitive. I'm sure it's very competitive in India. It's very competitive here. So as an agent, what can you do to be different, or what can you to be better than your competition? Thirdly, what are you doing to get every seller, buyer, landlord, tenant to be a client for life? Um, Fourthly, it's all about being disruptive. So, what disruptive questions are you asking? So, I don't know. Do you own your own home where you are? Okay. If somebody came along and offered you a good price today, would you consider moving?
Again, depends on the price.
Yeah. Potentially you would. So that's about being disruptive. I've now created an opportunity. And finally, what are you doing to be 1% better every day? Because cumulatively, that's going to make a massive, massive difference. So that's what I talk about to start off with. And then from there, it's right. So let's look at all the key numbers in your business. Okay. And let's look at all your different processes. So, what do you want to turn over this year? How many sales or lets do you have to make? What's your conversion rate on market appraisal from instruction to market appraisal to instruction? What's your success rate? What's your achieved price to asking price? Um, what's your negotiating skills like? So, what's you negotiating from your first offer to your last offer? What's your days on market like? And then it's right, let's look at all our systems and processes. What can we do to either improve them or get them down? And it is really looking at drilling down granularly to work everything out.
Understood. When you talk about systems and processes, Stephen, which parts of the process create the biggest drop offs?
It could be, look, it could even be, give you an example. I mystery shop loads of estate agents. So I'm thinking of selling my property. Can you just give me an idea as to how much you charge? The first impressions are really important. Okay. It doesn't take long, and you most probably, a seller or a buyer is going to call loads and loads of estate agents. Impressions are really, really important. So I would say the majority of time, they don't even know how much they charge. They don't take my name and number, and they don't ask where the property is. So already you're missing a massive opportunity, and that's at the start. So, you have to do the basics exceptionally well. Do you want to be ordinary or extraordinary? Once you start doing the basics well and making sure you're asking the right questions, then it's going to make a massive, massive difference. And it starts with people coming into your office. It's just about asking better questions for the whole time. And that's going to create opportunities, and that's going to bring more revenue into your business.
You highlighted a very crucial point across industry sectors is just be attentive at every step of the journey.
Yeah, listen to people. Uh, Really, really important. Understand them. It's going to help you understand what their needs are. And asking the right questions is really, really important.
One of the factors that has a massive impact is the lead response times as well, in terms of how quickly do you get back to the person who's inquired. So, in your opinion, what is the ideal timeline somebody should actually revert to the inquirer?
It's setting expectations. I've been to 4 right move seminars. This is pre-COVID, and there were 170 estate agents in the room. And Rightmove had sent them a mystery shop email that said, I'm thinking of renting a property out. I've also got a property. So I'm looking to rent a property in such and such area. Here's my budget. I'm also looking to rent a property out. And they asked the question, how soon would you respond? 1 hour, the same day, or the next day? So 170 agents, hand up 1 hour. What was the reality? 80% never even responded. Never responded. Okay. And the most important part from that is for any letting agent was they had a property to rent out. Okay. So out of the 20% that answered that, only 10% dealt with it. And it's scary.
Wow.
So again, it's about setting expectations. It's about understanding. So I suppose from a consumer's point of view, if I'm looking to buy, I would expect a response straight away. From an agent's point of view, the agent most probably has to educate consumers as to what they do during the day. So, I would say within a couple of hours should be a satisfactory response.
So there are two things. One is the classic Pareto principle, that is applicable here, 80-20. There were 117, estate agents, and then 80% didn't respond. It was 20%. There were about 34 agents, and out of 34, it was about 10% who actually sort of made it. If you look at the bar, it is still low in terms of performing and delivering. Because if you set the SOPs, the standard operating procedures in your business, which links well to the expectations, because when you're setting the SOPs, one is your internal expectations, depending on the size of the agency you're running, and then two is from the customer's perspective as well. So a classic example there.
Well, look, what I would be doing if I was any business, any estate agency, is looking at your systems and processes. So whether it's answering the phone for reviewing, booking in a market appraisal, dealing with an offer, is looking at it, writing down all your processes and asking this question. I don't know if you come across OGAP. Is it, are we outstanding? Are we good? Are we average, or are we poor? And as a business, where do we want to be? So everybody will say outstanding. Okay, so let's go through our process. How do we make answering the call outstanding? Okay, what will make it outstanding? Let's just say our mum or nan is phoning up. We want our nan or mum to be treated exceptionally well. So, but why should it be just our nan and our mum? It should be every single person who's made a decision that they want to use our services. That's why they're calling. They want help. So how can we give them fantastic service, fantastic experience? So I would go through every one of our systems and processes and come up with how do we make them outstanding.
So if someone runs a single branch or even a couple of branches, what are the key numbers from your perspective they should be looking at, every Monday morning?
Okay, and I think you raise an important point there. You need to look at them. You need to see whether you're on track every 7, 14, 21, 28 days. If you're looking after 28 days, it's not great. So, but agency is very simple. You need to master 4 skills. So you need to master creating opportunities, listing, selling, and negotiating. So if you can't create opportunities, you've got nothing to list. If you're lousy at listing, you've got nothing to sell. If you can't sell, God help us all, you might as well shut up shop and go. So as a seller, I want a skilled negotiator who's going to get every last single penny to maximize my biggest tax-free asset. So for me is, right, going back to where we started on the gold, can we get one extra market appraisal a day? Because if we can get one extra market appraisal a day, that's going to make a massive difference. If we're converting, and most estate agents on the sales side will convert anything between 40 to 60% of their market appraisals to instructions. Okay, so what do we need to do to get whatever it is from 40 to 45 or 60 to 65% up? What can we do to make sure that, are we selling every property that comes on? So are we pricing it correctly? Because the longer a property is on the market, you've got only a 1 in 2 chance of selling it. So we need to make sure we're pricing it correctly. Are we making sure that we know what our fall through rate? Because 1 in 3 properties fall through in the UK. So how can we get that down? So we need to know those numbers. So how good are we at negotiating from our first offer to the last offer? A lot of agents, they just, oh, great. Ketan, he's happy to take whatever it is, £150,000, 200. Fantastic, we've got it. Whereas actually, I'll be pushing to get every last single penny, because that can make a life-changing amount for you as well. So it's knowing your key numbers in your business and finding those little 1% every single day that can make a difference, and those 1% will bring in more revenue every day. And I was going to say, so making sure that you're doing it every 7, 14, 21 and 28 days, really, really important. So, if I break it down, let's just say I need, hypothetically, this is to make it easy for my maths, you need to do 12 market appraisals a month. So on day 7, we should be on 3, day 14, 6, day 21, 9, day 28, 12. But for me, I want to break records. Okay. So I want to break every single record my company has ever done. So, let's just say I hit 6 on the first day 7. Okay. I'm not going to go, oh, you know what? I'm going to get 12. I want that to go up to 18, 22. But I will find out what the most amount of market appraisals is ever done in my office, and I'm there to beat it.
Absolutely. And if you're a business owner, you have to know your numbers. That's the most important thing. And so what's one KPI that estate agents, they really tend to obsess over that actually isn't the most important one?
Could be market share, because what is more important, market share or more revenue, more profit. So sometimes I would I would prefer to sell 50 properties at 2% than 100 properties at 1%.
So estate agents don't obsess over market share.
Yes.
Stephen, so one thing I've heard you talk about, in this idea of turning data into the revenue and the concept of marginal gains as well. So for estate agency owners, who may not think about it this way, what do marginal gains actually look like inside an agency?
Well, going back to all those numbers, let's just say instead of getting one market appraisal a day, you got 2 market appraisals a day. Okay, that would transform your business. And so I would focus on getting whatever, just be 1% better on whatever you do. The most important thing, as I said, is market appraisals, because if you don't have those, you don't have any business. So really focus on those, the little conversations that you can have with people. I do these sessions in front of people. So it's a 3-hour session, and for 2 hours, we're talking about different categories on your customer base, who you should be calling, what you should say. And then I get people to make the calls. Um, and then people see that they work. And I think, the very best, and this is an extreme, that this was somebody's first day, and it was an agent in Scotland. And I said, please, I want you to ask this question to every single landlord. And it's just a very simple question. Is this your only property, or is it part of a larger property empire? And he asked that question, and was his first day. And the landlord he was on the phone to said, I've got 768 properties. And it was like, what? 768
Wow.
properties? And, that was incredible. But the other thing is another way of answering your question is maybe estate agency, we get lows and no's, especially when you're turning your data into gold. So what I would say is, when you've got no, 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 and you've had enough, just make one more call. That would be a marginal gain. That one more call, because actually that one more call could mean you getting that market appraisal, that instruction, that financial service lead, some other cross-selling opportunities. But keep going.
One more call is a classic because it works exactly, ranging from sales, recruitment, everything that is, where you're prospecting, you are going to be rejected. So giving up is not the solution. You have to keep going and then tweak smaller improvements, across the process, conversion improvements, better conversations, better follow-ups, and faster lead responses is what you want. So why do you think, many agencies actually resist measuring, all these things properly?
Oh, that's a cruel question. I could do myself out of a job here. Some because they don't know their numbers. There's no regulation in the UK, so you could be a butcher one day and an estate agent the next day. So how do you know where to start? One of the things that I'm involved is I was a founder member of Agents Together, so we support estate agents by giving them some mentoring. I think we've helped over 1,500 people. Um, but the first thing I would get to do is to get to know your numbers. And with there's so much. You got YouTube. There's so much content out there today. Um, just listen and help. and there's people out there that will help you as well. We're far more collaborative now than we've ever been.
Collaboration is key. I mean, I reached out to you from India to the UK. Our market is the UK, which is where we work with a number of businesses. At the end of the day, you agreed to come on the show. We didn't know each other before. It was a shot in the dark that let me check with Steven if he's happy to come as a guest on the podcast. You have to take those chances. You also have to get involved and learn from whatever is available. And thankfully, with the tech and everything, I don't think knowledge is scarce. It's your focus and time. So it's I don't think it's the complexity. It's just the willingness to work on things that you really believe are going to matter, to yourself and in your business.
No, I think you summed it up there. We've all got the same amount of seconds, minutes, um, hours in a day, and actually, it's what we choose to do with them, and that's what makes a difference. It's all about choice.
Earlier in the conversation, Stephen, you mentioned that yes, the market has been impacted with, there's war, there's energy prices going up, and a lot of people would still say that yes, the market is slowing down, and it's becoming more competitive. But in your view, is it also exposing, weak systems inside the agencies who are not able to, deliver as they were, when the market was booming?
I think when the market was booming, actually, most probably, if you look at COVID, some of the systems and process actually went out the window because it was really easy. The market here, and I mean this respectfully to all the estate agents who really worked hard, but they would put a property on, they get 30 phone calls, they get 30 viewings, they get 30 offers, and it was crazy. Now you have to have a totally different mindset. There's properties that are coming on the market that you're not getting any viewings. So you've got to have fierce conversations with people. So it's very important now to make sure that you're pricing properties at the right price. Because if they're not, you're wasting the seller's time, you're wasting your time. Um, and you're not helping, you're just not helping. So you need to create your own opportunities. Um, so for me, I'm a very system and process driven person. I think it's really important. If you do something more than once, you should have a system and process for it. And you should always be looking to improve it. So review your systems and processes. Ask yourself, actually, are we outstanding in what we do? Are we good? Are we average? Are we poor? And just keep on improving on them all the time.
And one thing, I can totally say from experience that in slower markets, it's the structure that becomes the strategy.
Percent. Definitely.
So are agents, better, with data today than they were, 5 or 10 years ago?
No. For good estate agents, yes. Okay. So the good estate agents will be doing this consistently. The other estate agents, they're just happy to wait for that one property to come on, that one phone call. But if you've got a huge customer base, what are you waiting for? You must have, one of the questions I ask on my training sessions is, can you write down who your 5 hottest buyers are? Okay, so they then tell me, okay, so what are you doing to find them something? Because you could be calling properties that you sold a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago to see if they want to move. You've got properties that have withdrawn. You've got your raving fans on Google that you may be able to do. You can go down and do a video of the area to say, I've got a lovely family looking to move this area. So you can create so many opportunities, but ultimately you've got to want to do it. So, and if it was me, I would want to do it. In fact, when I was at Green and Co, I had one of my negotiators, 75% of his sales were done off market. Why? Because he knew who his buyers were and he would go and get the one-off viewings.
And that's what the best performing agencies would do differently. It all goes back to data and structure, and then building relationships bases the information that you have, and then boots on the ground rather than being seated in the office.
Yeah, so what gets scheduled gets done. So schedule the key activities that you need to do. Schedule them in your diary. So one obviously is going to be, and this is a non-negotiable to me. One will be creating opportunities. That will be in my diary every single day. Another one will be vendor care, landlord care, to make sure, because communication is really important. Another one will be buyer management. Make sure we're staying on touch with our buyers. We know what they're doing. Another one, if depending on how you do your sales progression, make sure that you're doing that. So again, it's scheduling all these things. So you've got systems and processes in place. You've got no excuses. So for me, it's I only want solutions, not excuses. If you've got excuses, leave those at the front door.
And then it also goes back to prioritizing in terms of what are you supposed to work on at what hours.
Yeah, very, very much so. So, the best agents have system structures in place where they know what they're doing, when they're doing it. And what's really important is to measure what is working well. So it may well be that you make calls at 9:30 in the morning and you have more success rate than you do at 6 o'clock at night. It may well be that actually at 12 o'clock, you're getting better return because people are around to answer the calls. So yeah, so play around with it and understand what times work best for you.
So what's the biggest myth, the estate agents believe about growth?
The biggest myth. Um,
Yes.
I don't think there are any myths. Okay. If you really want it, just go and do it. Be positive, be proactive, make it happen. The only person stopping yourself is yourself, nobody else. So, it's your choice. If you want to be successful in life, okay, surround yourself with people that have been there, that have done it. Because Corny saying, alert, success leaves clues. So find out who's the most successful agent, take them for lunch, find out what got them there. Because what got you there won't get you further. So you need to learn from these people and go from there.
Learn from the experts and then make sure that you are implementing that has helped them in your day-to-day. Before we wrap up, Stephen, let's give agency owners a few practical takeaways. So just a quick reflections, what's one metric every estate agent should obsess over?
Just get one extra market appraisal a day and make a massive difference to your business.
Right. And what's one thing agency owners should stop doing?
Should stop doing. Not picking up the phone to make the calls. Hey, pick up the phone, make the calls. Use your customer base. You've got it there. Work it. Hey, turn that gold, mine that gold, turn it into gold.
And what's one simple, operational change they could implement this month?
Okay. Schedule in your diary 1 hour every day and start it tomorrow.
Stephen, this has been a really interesting conversation. Estate agency is often described as a relationship-driven business, and of course it is. But what we've talked about today is that the agencies that grow consistently, are the ones that usually truly understand the systems, structure, processes, and numbers. So if anyone's on here, listening, wants to learn about the work you do around, helping agencies, turn their data into revenue, where's the best place to find you?
Everywhere. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I think I'm Stephen Brown, the estate agent trainer. I've got a website, sjbconsultancy.co.uk. I run an online training platforms to help agents learn. So I put on 3 sessions a month from 9:30 to 10:30. I've got world-class speakers from Australia, America, and loads of UK speakers and trainers and agents who are very happy to collaborate and help people. You can find my podcast, Lunchtime Learnings, on all the usual Spotify and Apple. I've also got another podcast called The Estate Agents Podcast as well. So Instagram at Stephen Brown 54, Facebook SJB Consultancy, Estate Agents Learnings on Instagram. So yeah, everywhere. YouTube channels as well.
Awesome. So I will include all these links under the description and also the pinned comment as well on YouTube. And if you enjoy conversations like this about how service businesses actually operate behind the scenes, make sure you subscribe to the Recruitment Curry Show. Thank you so much for watching.